All right, we're going to play a little commercial before we get started here.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. There are payment plans available to help save your property. Visit our website at treasurer.waynecounty.com or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com for further information. We're here to help.
Yes, they are. Hi there. Happy Friday, everybody. Yes. And welcome to The Week That Was, which is the still animated ghost limb of the otherwise moribund and maybe even dead Brian Detroit.
Well, I want you to know the website still gets about 135,000 unique readers a month.
That I just find amazing, but I'm really glad that you're keeping it up because I've had to check a few of my own stories, for whatever, and I'm glad it's there, which is something
Well, the reason for all the clicks, Ellen, I've got dementia. I got to keep going back for reference.
All right, we are
everything.
Yes, and I am Nancy Derringer, and I am hosting this week because Saeed Khan is off living his fabulous life as he often does. What is he? He's got a speaking.
He actually has a speaking engagement at a temple,
at a synagogue. Jewish,
synagogue.
So he's. I hope they aren't too hard on him. Anyway, no, Saeed's a sweetie. So, and anyway, I'm Nancy Derringer, often described as veteran journalist in the introductions, but I'm going with basically unsuccessful journalist. Joining me is
not true
lawyer and psychologist Joel Sklar, although he no longer practices
psychology.
Shrinking. Yeah, exactly. But I always like to. I think that really gives your perspective, your observations a certain depth. So I always
wait. Joel if Joel's practicing law, he's practicing psychology.
Exactly. Right.
That's absolutely true.
Exactly. We also have with us Bill Seikaly, local attorney, Ed Sarpolus coming in from Lansing, a pollster, and PR specialist David Rudolph directly below me. Welcome to all of us. Yes, welcome to everybody, and welcome to everybody who is watching. Let's get started. As usual, it was a veritable fire hose of news. Probably, let's start with the first thing that happened that involved President Trump in the last 7 days. And that, of course, was the verdict in the E. Jean Carroll civil rape and defamation trial. It did not end well for the president. He was found guilty or liable for sexual abuse, short of rape, but also found liable for all the other charges that that Carroll made against him, and ordered to pay her $5 million.
And as we know, he's quite contrite about it. We're going to play a little video.
President Trump met a friendly audience in New Hampshire. He even drew laughs when he mocked the trial in which a jury found him liable for sexual abuse.
What kind of a woman meets somebody and brings him up, and within minutes you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room, okay?
Trump also defended comments he made on the Access Hollywood tape, saying he could grope women.
I said it's been true for 1 million years, approximately 1 million years, perhaps a little bit longer than that.
So you stand by those comments?
Well, I don't want to lie.
He doesn't want to lie for the first time.
What kind of brain dead garbage person laughs at something like that? But, whatever.
So actually, I think the definition is a Trump supporter.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's take it from there. And I'd like to start on this one with Ed, because there was a lot of talk. All right. You know what? I'm not going to start with Ed, because I want to start with Ed when we talk about the CNN event from which that clip came from. Right now, we're just going to talk about the trial. You lawyers over there on the right side of the screen may have some thoughts about this from a legal perspective. Why don't one of you take it away? What went wrong for Trump in this case, other than
he raped her? Or he
everybody told the truth.
Right.
Should he have showed up? Do you think that would have helped? Yeah.
Well, I think showing up always helps. I think not showing up is difficult. I think the facts were awful against him. But again, I think the fact that he abdicated his defense more or less by simply not showing up and not taking the time to even look jurors in the eye and say, this is absurd. This is just what he did on CNN. Didn't have the courage to go to court to do so. And it reflects him to be a coward, to be honest with you. He didn't face his accuser. He said in Scotland he was coming back to do so. He's a coward.
Yeah.
He couldn't stomach going to the courtroom, having the jury look at him with disbelief. not affectionate. He couldn't stand it. He needs accolades and nothing else. And this was not the forum for that. So I think it was a just decision. I wish they hit him harder, but I'm glad they hit him. And, he has been found to be a sexual abuser, at least under New York law, I believe. And, he'll have to live with this. I know they filed an appeal from what I understand, or they said that they were going to do that. Go ahead. But this isn't going to die. This ain't going away.
Yeah. Okay.
It's interesting. First of all, I'm going to disagree slightly with Joel. I actually tried a case against Charles Pugh in which Pugh did the exact same thing, just didn't show up. And I thought at the time, oh, great, this is wonderful. And I'm going to really humiliate him. We did. It really helps with liability. The odds of getting when they don't show up are almost non-existent. I think perhaps, Joel, you said you wish that he would have gotten hit harder. Mm-hmm. I think his non-appearance kept the verdict down.
You may be right. Yeah, he may be more offensive had he shown up. And
exactly right. So let's assume for a moment that he would have shown up and testified in the same way he addressed the CNN audience and said, it's true. We get to grope women if you're famous. That's an escalator in terms of the verdict. They didn't get him, they had a clip on his video that looked bad, but in person, that stuff gets really offensive.
Yeah, the visceral sense. You're absolutely correct.
And so I thought my opponent made a huge mistake in the Pugh case when he let his client not come in. With hindsight, it kept the verdict down. I think with hindsight here, it also kept the verdict down. I think had he shown up and taken that position live instead of by video,
it'd be $25 million.
Video, I mock try every case that I try, and using videotape versus a live person it is a very different thing.
Well, that is supported by by her attorneys, who said this: all her expert witnesses never were raped; they were assaulted. There was no visible evidence that they could actually validate that she was raped, because she didn't ask for any money, and because of the fact that all her support said that he did everything but that. They knew if they wouldn't have to go over more than what they already had for fact. They could support everything about the rape. That's the reason why they did what they did. That's what her attorney says. She was happy with that. And she would have got less money if she asked for money. The fact that she didn't ask for money, they felt comfortable with what they were going to do.
I think it's hysterical in the end in that little video where the reporter Caitlin says, so when he talks about groping and stuff, so you stick by that, and he goes, yeah, well, I don't want to lie. I want to be truthful or something. And it's so funny. The guy lied all the way through. And at that one moment, he struck with truthfulness. You would think at that one moment, he'd be like, nah, that's locker room talk. But he's like, yeah, sure. That video, I mean, the deposition was when he kept saying, she's not my type. And then he misidentifies her as his wife, Marla Maples. It was pretty good stuff for the
deposition.
Well, the not my type defense is an awful defense, because you're saying if she looked better, I would have raped her. I mean, is that really your defense? So you're saying you're a rapist? It's just not she doesn't hit your standard. That's an absurd defense to me.
And
he admits he ropes. He says, "Yeah, I'm a star." Right. Yeah, I already admits that he does that stuff. He didn't deny it.
Yeah, don't just kiss. Yeah.
Let me jump. I want to jump in and say something.
Sure.
What went wrong with all of this, besides what Trump said, because I paid no attention to, to even watching that, is the fact that CNN did it anyway. To me, this just felt like, and because I play in the court of public opinion, to me, this just seems like this just walked right into Republican strategists. Nixon / Roger Ailes playbook of 2016, get Trump in a live audience, that's fill the deck with folks that are sympathizers and MAGA all the way, and then let him at it. Why are we even watching, Trump live in a town hall on CNN. I mean, that's Fox space. To me, that's why I thought it was garbage all the way through. No matter what he said, you just giving him another opportunity to,
so
David,
we're gonna move on to that topic because that's the next thing we want to talk about is that particular CNN thing. But that's okay. That's fine that you said that. I want to make one more point about the Carroll trial, and that was, you said before the not my type defense. How much do you think the behavior of his lawyer, Mr. Takapina, what's his first name? I forget. Anyway, he questioned Carroll on the stand like he was in a 1973 era movie of the week about date rape, where one of those issue movies, where we're introducing the public to this shocking concept that a woman can be raped by someone she knows. And, it was, did you scream? Did you go to the hospital? Why didn't you call the police? All these things that we have over time, we now understand they're just dumb questions because people behave all kinds of ways after a traumatic incident that doesn't always go exactly according to the to the script, to the old script. And so I wonder if that was off-putting. I mean, there were 6 men and 3 women on this jury. And I said, if there's even one woman on that jury, she's probably seething inside at this. Do you guys think that had anything to do with this?
Sure.
With a better attorney, he might have had a better result?
No, I don't think so, because what I like the fact that there were 6 men and 3 women. Because men could be more prominent if they wanted to disagree because they had fellow men. Okay.
Yeah.
Having the men, they were following what the women might have suggested. I thought it was the best thing for her, the fact that the men were they were protected. They could say because they had a team effect. So the fact the women, if they were expressing their opinion, the men had to go along without fear of if they disagreed with them.
And actually, I can support everything Ed just said. This is very counterintuitive, but in my mock trials, what I found is that your better jurors are people who don't directly relate to the victim.
Oh,
Nancy,
okay.
I understand your position, but here's what we've found. Women on that jury are going to get defensive about the fact that I wouldn't have wanted to allow myself in that position. I would have done something differently, and their defensiveness will be taken out on the plaintiff. So Ed is right. In my early career, I did a lot of press cases.
I do a lot of focus groups, so you see that all the time.
Right.
That's one of the things that you see. You want the dynamics,
So I think that's important. The other thing is that we have found consistently, because oftentimes I play the defense attorney in my own case during my mocks because I know the case better, and I want to see if their techniques work. And I'll rant and rave. Jurors say, "Oh, that's what defense attorneys do. That's their job. We're not going to punish him for doing his job." Okay. So I'm always now. Plaintiffs' attorneys, on the other hand, will get punished if they move outside those boundaries. Not defense attorneys.
Okay.
So they're saying defense attorneys can be assholes, and that's okay.
You're expected to be assholes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, your credibility on both sides you got to carry. And if the jury, at least in my experience, finds that the defendant or the plaintiff has lied, they're going to get fucked. Jurors don't want to be lied to, and I don't care what part you're playing. If you lie to the jury and it's demonstrable, you're going to get fucked.
Yeah.
And the truth is I mean, this is a system. The jury system has made some mistakes, but not very many, in my opinion.
Okay.
And the truth is, the jury ends up being almost a human lie detector. It is.
It's amazing.
I tell everybody I put in a witness stand, for God's sakes, don't lie. They'll figure out that you're lying. They'll know. Don't do it.
Right.
I have to say there was something, the clips of the deposition that have been played in the media they were skin crawl. They made my skin crawl. There was something about the way he said rape. He kept saying rape. She's accusing me of rape. she's accusing me of raping her. And it's just like, that guy really likes to say that word.
Yeah, he does.
Gross. But anyway, all right.
Well, imagine this very quickly. Their defense said we won, and their comment was because they didn't get award rape.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it's like I would be.
Wow.
That's what he said. He says we won this because of the fact he wasn't accused for rape.
Plaintiff's attorney never object to a $5 million loss.
No.
She would have to. I'd like E. Jean Carroll to make a statement saying, "I'll take $2 million if he'll admit that the reason he skated on the rape charges is because I couldn't tell if he got it in or not."
I have a question for the lawyers. Now, what happens now? He goes back on the CNN after he's just been found liable or of slander, whatever, and he goes and does it again, and he calls her a whack job and
the new cause of action.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
She's already said, well, with that, we're going to move on then to the CNN event, which was, I agree with David, what David said. It was a total shit show. It was entirely predictable as a shit show. I don't know how many of you, Allan and I are probably more plugged into the media reaction than most people, and it's a uniform chorus of what were you thinking to do this thing, because the event was completely predictable. They had Trump on for a town hall where the town was Magaville, and they allowed him to essentially, and Caitlin Collins, I mean, she tried to hold up her end. She told him over and over that this wasn't true, blah, blah, blah. And he just steamrollers over her exactly like he has done for we've seen him do for the last, 8 years. And the result was a shit show. Right. And so,
David, you raised the issue. And I want to ask your response, because I don't know. Has anybody seen what kind of audience it drew?
It was not great, but
it was
about
3 million. 3 point. I think it was 3.5. 3.1. Was it? It was
whatever.
It was a little over 3 million. They say it got less than Joe Biden when they did a town hall meeting when Joe Biden got 3.7 million. They said it was better than their normal 8 p.m. slot, but it was somewhat disappointing. I think, I was expecting better. I think a lot of people were expecting better. I didn't realize they were going to load up. Maybe they wrote about it. I didn't read it. I didn't realize they're going to load up the audience with a bunch of sycophants where they were both just playing off each other and ganging up on the moderator there. Mm-hmm. I mean, moderator, CNN should have figured, look, they're going to need somebody. I think they could have picked a better person to moderate, only because she's very classy and tried to be very dignified, but it was like the 900-pound gorilla just like throwing around like a rag doll and resurrecting himself after just having this case where he was found, to have sexually assaulted somebody, and he's amazing at just overriding all that. And I think they could have picked a better moderator.
Well, first you got to understand that this was the top of the top deciding to do this. It was not the rest of the lower staff. Right. There was opposition to doing this. This was done for financial purposes, to rebrand CNN, who was hurting financially, trying to capture something to show that they're the middle ground. They're not Republican. They're not Democrat. This was a business decision at the top. You listen to the people that are leaking out of CNN. Their core crew said, "Don't do this."
Yeah.
Okay, and that's why that was done, with no thought about other than how we make money, how do we appear non-left leaning. That's all it was.
And probably the only media person who thinks it was a success is the new president of CNN, the guy who fired Brian Stelter and all of their their lefties. He thinks it was a smashing success, but the people who now work for CNN and care about its reputation do not. I mean. Go ahead.
Isn't this like a repetition, though, of 2016? He's getting free publicity. CNN is sponsoring it.
Well,
this is what happened the last time around. He has. Oh, I'm sorry. He's got.
No. I was going to say David is the PR guy. I mean, That's exactly what does this
do? I find it. There's some irony in there too, because May is also sweeps month. So everybody's
Oh,
putting
yeah, I forgot about that.
is putting their best drama, garbage out there, so, while this was a business decision at the very top, to me, it was a very poor decision. And again, you walked right at, as much as we're just starting off where we left off in 2016 with just giving Donald Trump free airtime to be able to, and the formatting, geez, I mean, could you have picked, a better time? This would have been much better as a tape where it could have been vetted through. The facts could have been, it's just a live, this is just providing chum in the waters, that exist for Trump. He thrives off of this, that energy. And it just, they got exactly, I don't know what they were looking for, but we know that they got exactly what we knew.
Well, what is so funny is I think the governor of New Hampshire says he says they did a screening of people who are undecided or independent. He says, but I know all their names. I know who they give to, and I know the Republican. He says, none of them are not Republican. None of them are not Trump people, even though they said it on their card. They were independent, undecided. He says, I can tell you your name, how much they give, and everything. The guy just mocked all audience.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you could make the argument, not that I want to, but you could make the argument that it was a town hall for a Republican primary. And so the people should have been Republicans. I have never so wanted to bring back the equal time doctrine.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're going to stop this, but
well, Biden says he already gave him. Biden said he already gave what he needed.
Right, but we can't do this anymore.
If
we're going to be effective, I mean,
the old rules have to
change. News show, CNN's becoming like Fox. We put something on. We know he's going to lie. We know it's a lie. We're going to let it happen. Okay, so we're not responsible for any of that. But that's not what the fifth estate's supposed to be about.
It's media response. I mean, and we'll ask the members of the press. I mean, how do you restrict? How do you do that? How do you interview Trump? If you know he's going to lie because he has one seat.
You don't give him the air.
One seat only.
Right.
What do you do?
You just don't give him the air.
You know what you do?
That's my point.
You get that little clip from Joe Biden. And every time Trump starts talking, you put on Joe Biden and would say, will you shut up, man?
Well, I think it's a very good, I think you raise a good point, which is that the old rules do not apply when people refuse to play by them. When you're dealing with bad faith actors. This is not the marketplace of ideas. This is the marketplace of Donald Trump. And we just can't, I mean, at some point you have to say, you just have to back away. It's like having an abusive spouse. You just got to leave. But Ed, I wanted to ask you because, we know that there are still diehard Trump supporters out there. We know that they're garbage people. But I mean, elections are won with independent voters, right? I mean, it's how many people in the middle that you can sway to your side. How do you think that event looked to a truly independent voter?
To sum it up, and statistically, Trump now would have to win three key seats to become president. Biden only has to win one of three, which is Michigan. Mm-hmm. He's lost all the suburbs.
Yeah, I don't see how a suburban woman, certainly, and even her husband, who might be a creep, but is still, a suburban guy, looks at that and says, 4 more years of this bullshit? Are you kidding me? I mean, who would ever want that? So
now what's interesting, after the debate, Biden's numbers in job rating in February jumped to 48%. Already had a bounce. At the same token, Trump's numbers went up because the fact DeSantis is folding. There's nobody out there. Somebody's the MAGA Republicans that were really off far right bases looking for a flag bearer. Right now, it's Trump.
Yeah.
So exactly. As a matter of fact, the same thing, believe it or not, actually, Clinton had a bigger jump after Monica Lewinsky's story broke. His numbers dropped 10% in favorability after it was announced that he had sex with Monica Lewinsky.
Yeah.
But that was for a different reason why they supported him, because of the fact they didn't think he'd ever hurt the country. He did this was bad. And also think they probably had a brother or somebody else that did something weird like that. But Trump numbers jumped, so did Biden. The key thing is Biden's numbers jumped. from the low 42 beginning of the week up to 48% as of today.
Right. So if
And
we
I have a
have
question for you.
David, go ahead.
I have a generation next in my house, 17-year-old. So what do the numbers look like for that? Because I listen to what she is processing, and my daughter will be voting in her first election come next year as an 18-year-old. And I'm listening as to what her contemporaries are saying about all of this. And I'm just interested, are you starting to see numbers related to what that means in terms of that group of new voters coming in and how they're going to process this?
Yes. As a matter of fact, the biggest concern Republicans have right now is people under 35. You're seeing right now that, believe it or not, the younger generation, the next generation, is basically more supportive, more racial equality, LGBTQ. As a matter of fact, not to go off the topic here, teenagers saying they're having sex, the younger sex has actually gone down by like 50%.
Right.
Okay. So there's a whole attitude change. Trump does not relate to them and anything that they're seeing. Because remember, because all their friends are confronted. 15% more people now say that they're not heterosexual than they have done in the last 20 years. So the younger generation are confronted with different issues, and Trump is not it.
No.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what bothers me, though, about 24, because if we do have a rematch of 2020, of Biden versus Trump, I think that there's a lot. I mean, obviously, there are very strong negatives for Trump, but there's not a lot of positives among younger people for Biden. I mean, I have a 26-year-old in my house, and, she looks at Washington and she's just like, why? Where is the concern for the climate? Where is the concern for, getting us out of this gig economy, or at least with decent health care? I mean, all these things that are important for younger people at that stage in their lives, better childcare, more childcare, cheaper childcare, all these things that they care about, and nobody's talking about them. And that kind of leads me to another topic that's farther down on our list, but I want to bring it up because it's related, which is the return. What?
I'm sorry. I just
Go
want
ahead.
There has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you going to pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
would you answer that
because
question?
the question is the question
Court justice,
the
radical
question,
left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list?
I just wanted to get to
Shut
that.
up, man. Right, exactly.
I love that. Play it again.
Well, but I wanted to bring this up. I want to bring this up with young people, as it relates to, for instance, the return of Diane Feinstein to the Senate this week. I mean, was she actually clinically dead? I mean, that she's 89 years old. It's a pretty much an open secret that she has, if not total dementia, enough dementia that it's becoming she can't really do public stuff anymore because she repeats herself. She doesn't seem to have any short-term memory anymore. She said she's not going to run again, but that's not for another. When is she up again?
Next year.
Next year. Exactly. It's like, and so imagine being a 22-year-old and watching this, corpse being wheeled into the Senate in a wheelchair. She looks terrible, and asking yourself, why is she still there? Why can't she resign? Why is everybody in charge in Washington 10,000 years old these days? And that's not ageist. I just
Roy Wood Jr., who did the correspondence dinner, was talking about, he said, here in France, we've got people who are rioting in the streets because they want to move retirement from 62 to 64. He says, here we've got a guy here who's 80 years old, who's begging for 4 more years on the job.
Exactly.
And Diane Feinstein, it's like, give it up. She's still got another 1.5 years to go in her term. She needs to, she's held up court appointments.
Right.
It's just selfishness. It's like, I hate to say Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who I love, but she fucked up the court.
Hung around too long.
Yeah.
Wait. you know, this is like, it's not that I disagree with what you're saying, but the problem here is not just her ego. There was a time in this country when the Republicans, all the Republicans went to Nixon and said, you got to go. You got to go. For the good of the country, for the good of the party, you must leave. There was a time that Democrats did that. We don't do that anymore.
No.
We don't.
It's trench warfare. Yeah.
This is not an isolated issue as to a particular person whose ego will not let them leave.
Well,
This
the
is
other problem you have
a problem in which everybody in the system is so concerned about maintaining their status, their power, their control, that they don't want to mess with anybody else.
Well, the other issue is the fact that the Senate side, there is enough male presence in leadership, okay? Because Schumer, remember, the senators and even black men in the Congress were trying to say going after women or posts like that. They're fearful to confront the issue. And if Schumer was smart, he would have had, instead of having Debbie Stabenow being moved out of leadership, made her more prominent, but much easier to talk about the senator from California. It's hard for in this status right now for old men in the Senate to go after a woman. It's just impossible.
You know, I wondered about why Debbie was removed from leaders, taken out of some of her leadership roles.
Yep.
Clearly, she had made the decision and communicated it in advance.
Yeah, well, she had made the decision 3 years ago. She just announced it this year, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. There is no other explanation for why she was moved out of leadership.
Correct, but that's what's hurting. That's what's hurting. Yes, there's no other voice there other than male voices.
Yeah, right. So yeah, if female senators had gone to Diane Feinstein and said, you know, it's time for you to go, it really is, you know, maybe she would have done it. Is that what you're saying?
Would have been much easier, but also policy factor too.
Yeah. Go ahead, Bill.
But I think that other people in the Senate could have done it. Question is how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't do it publicly. You don't pound the table. You go and there was a time when the Senate, especially, but even in the House, it was about relationships. You know,
right.
Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan used to have a beer every Thursday. And I think it was Tip O'Neill who famously said, now that the elections are over, let's get to what the American people need. And they sat down and started negotiating. Those relationships just don't exist. They don't exist across the aisle. They don't exist within the teams.
Yeah.
And not only that, all their California members are running against her. So how do they go to her? You know, because they're trying to force her out.
I don't know. I saw some of when the calls started a few weeks ago for Feinstein to step down, to actually leave. I saw that some of the people defending her were female Republican senators, including some really gross ones like Joni Ernst in Iowa. And I file that under, you know, when your enemy starts giving you advice, don't take it. Because it's not good advice. So. All right. Well, before we go locally, let's go back. Let's stay on the national stage for a little longer and talk about the comically inept George Santos, who finally had to turn himself in on what I mean, Lengel, you read more, or you watch more cable news than I. What are the worst of the charges against him?
Is that a compliment you're paying me, Nancy? I think it's so shameful. I mean, it really speaks to the state of Kevin McCarthy and the Republican Party. I mean, why would you want, as we say in Yiddish, dreck like that serving in? I mean, a guy who would just it's funny. I did watch a little clip on TV where one of the reporters said to Kevin McCarthy, who's walking, and said, "Will you support Santos in the re-election?" And he looked at them like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" You know. And at the same time, he won't. I mean, it's disgraceful. I mean, it's just so.
And not only that, the guy is so obnoxious too.
Yeah.
I mean, he seems to be leaning. Everybody now wants to be like Trump. They've seen that, like, gross, sexist, commentary about people no longer hurts you, and so you might as well just do as much of it as you want. And so perhaps leaning into his like gay former drag queen persona, he was tweeting about the red carpet at the Met Gala, earlier this month, and and talking about, oh my God, who dressed you, girl? This kind of thing. I'm like, oh my God. He must just be trying to build a brand in the 2 years that he has, because he's undoubtedly going to be turned out after one term. I just don't see how he can prevail. I mean, his own party in New York wants him out. New York, his district is not crazy. They're going to want somebody who's going to at least be effective, somebody they can call when their passport.
Nancy, his own district is not crazy.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you just a single piece of evidence that was wrong.
Okay.
They elected him.
Well, but they didn't know about him though at the time. I mean, now that they know, he's an embarrassment.
Well, look, I went to George Santos' bar mitzvah, and I can tell you.
Well, the other funny, but you got to remember this: he's also justifying why he sponsored that bill on Social Security fraud. He's justifying.
Yeah. To answer your question directly, Nancy, that you started with,
yes.
I think that the most serious charges that he faces are both the mail fraud and the Social Security fraud, or
right.
the unemployment.
And I believe this morning he pled guilty to the Brazilian charges that he did.
So that he wouldn't have to go back. Right. Yeah.
Which is another virtue, another check.
Exactly. So, all right. Well, go figure. So, all right, let's go back home here. In what I find kind of a baffling move, the city of Detroit wants to charge several of the 2020 protesters who were opposing police brutality during the summer of George Floyd. And I don't know what they're thinking. I mean, the city already lost a civil case that was brought by those people for, malicious prosecution, the usual stuff, oversight, overstepping their
$1 million.
And they lost. And I just, what do they think? What do they want to do here?
I read that differently. I don't believe it was criminal charges.
Right.
I think,
they were suing.
I think what they're talking about is a countersuit, civil charges.
Oh, right. Of course. Okay. Sure. I stand corrected.
But I mean, look, those of us who followed that whole Black Lives Matter, all that movement at the time, I mean, the cops were triggering things. The cops were the ones who were being more violent. The cops were shooting people indiscriminately with those rubber bullets. They were. I mean,
those were peaceful.
They were in their right to sue the police department.
Right.
And for them to turn around and try to sue them, I mean, it's just I don't know, it's some legal maneuvering or something. I don't know if it's but it's ridiculous. I mean, we should move on from that whole thing. That whole thing was just, we learned a thing where the cops were kneeling and then they were shooting, they were beating on people and shoving people down. I mean, and you saw people who were moving along and the cops would come along and speed up and shove them in the back. And, it's,
all of this was and those were peaceful protests by and large.
Right.
I mean, there were some people yelling here and there, and there was rudeness, but that's the worst of it. But this was this James Craig, just trying to show that he was a badass? I don't know. I mean, I was stunned by some of the police behavior, because somebody stepped off a sidewalk, they get a nightstick to the knees or rubber bullets. It just seems ridiculous.
Right.
Oh, well.
I'm surprised the city hasn't just take their medicine with their legal losses and keep moving, but this seems very personal to me.
Yeah, why bring it back up? I don't get it.
Go.
It's 3 years later, so there we go.
And, the whole thing, I mean, when you look at other cities, Chicago, Portland, particularly Seattle, I mean, I think there was a broken window at the Coney Island. I don't know if there was much more vandalism beyond that. I mean, Detroit, and the whole curfew thing was BS.
Yeah.
People were protesting, peacefully, and at 8 o'clock they'd start shooting people with rubber bullets. It was just insane.
I know, it was pretty crazy. So, all right. Okay, let's stay in the state of Michigan now. I saw this story too earlier this week. The Muskegon Memorial Day Parade has banned their local NAACP and the Democratic Black Caucus for being political. They don't want politics in their Memorial Day Parade. And I read the argument in favor of this. The guy was saying that lately political entries to the parade have become more and more overt. I mean, we've all been to a million Memorial Day, Veterans Day, 4th of July parades in which some local politician will either walk by or ride by on the back of a convertible, just saying, hey, I'm here, hi. But I don't know what's going on over in Muskegon. Muskegon is kind of terra incognita for me. But
it's it's not in the 4th of July parade in Huntington Woods. They had Andy Levin.
Yeah.
And and his opponent, they were marching in the parade. They had cars. Sandra Levin was there. It's not unusual for those types of things for there to be some politics in there.
Well,
certainly on Labor Day.
Yeah, I mean, there's always somebody from the city, some official. There's a mayor there. The Levins would come by. You're absolutely correct.
Well, sometimes it's the politicians that fund the campaign parades because they're the ones that got the bodies to get them to the place.
Right.
I guess one issue is there a First Amendment right to be involved in the parade, to express yourself? I don't know.
I don't know if there is either, but it seems as though, Memorial Day is a parade when we honor the war dead, right? So it's also the unofficial beginning of summer, but it's something that we always want to point out that this is a somber occasion to honor the war dead. And some of the greatest injustices made against Black people in the modern era, I think, has been how Black veterans were treated, when they came back. I've read some stories about, I think somebody wrote a book about lynching. I heard it on Terry Gross's show or something. And they were saying that Black veterans found that one of the most dangerous things you could do in the South was wear your uniform when you came home. Because, people who either didn't serve or were threatened by the fact that you had served, might end up attacking you somehow. So it seems as though there's absolutely a place for, Black organizations. The Michigan Democratic Black Caucus. What's the big deal there? I just don't see it.
The problem is that's the only thing that they said was that, well, we're eliminating the NRA, we're eliminating candidates, we're eliminating the Republican Party. They're trying to cover, they're rejecting all these people. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But
I don't know. Let them all march. Unless they get obnoxious.
I think the best argument for letting them all march is, why did those veterans sacrifice their lives?
Free speech.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was to preserve our form of government, then it seems to me only reasonable that you want to be able to allow everybody to be in the parade. Now, I don't particularly have any problems with saying we're going to make it a somber occasion. We're not going to allow certain activities.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
Okay.
But even if you agree with this notion that we're going to get rid of the political parties, or the political activities, to say that the NAACP is a political party is one of the great absurdities of our time.
Mm-hmm.
But they blame it on their webpage.
They went to the webpage, and it said that the purpose was to preserve the social, political, and legal rights of people of color.
Right.
That does not make you a political activity. If it did, then the veterans are all political.
Right.
Because their purpose is to serve and protect the people of the United States in its form of government.
Mm-hmm.
So,
true.
I watched 2 or 3 interviews of the guy who defended this position. I can even get to the Democratic Black Caucus. I can even say, okay, if you're excluding all political groups, I can deal with that. The NAACP, that is offensive beyond words. It's just offensive beyond words.
I would agree. All right, let's go to our local White Boy Rick expert for the latest briefing on White Boy Rick stepping in it down in Florida. He was arrested for, what was it, domestic Violence?
Assault,
allegedly.
and theft, allegedly. Now he's come out and made a statement actually saying that the thing is bogus. The initial charge was a woman. The police story is a woman was in bed with Rick, and Rick spouted out the wrong name, not her name, and she jumped out of bed, and Rick jumped out of bed, and they tried to grab the jewelry he had given her. This is her story, and that she threw a shoe at him, and he caught up and he punched her. Okay. That's his story. His story. His
lovers.
Yes, a classic. I meant to say that's why there should be somewhere where you can wear a name tag even when you're naked. But
don't they know the way around that? You just say, "Oh, baby," you know. You don't actually say somebody's name.
Nancy, do you have experience in this? I'm trying to figure out how you know
that. It just seems like it's an easy mistake to avoid making. You know what I mean? Easy to avoid. I mean, this is, wow. So
and so his version is that she was trying to basically rob him, steal from him, and that there was no pushing involved there, and that he was going to go down to the police department to report her for theft, and she beat him to it and gave her story. And so he's saying it's all bogus. He's out of there. I think it was like a $5,000 bond. It was pretty minimal there. He's not on probation, thankfully, but he's got a marijuana business, the 8 with Rick Wershey, and he's working on a documentary. And the documentary started rolling right from the moment he walked out of prison, which was actually a halfway house down in Florida. And so he says he's working on a documentary now in his life. And I have a friend who had a fundraiser for a politician, and Rick is at all these things. I mean, it was for a Wayne County sheriff. And he said Rick was the draw, even though there were some other big names there. Rick was the draw. Rick's a celebrity, but he's got to be careful. People are going to, he's hanging out, if he hangs out with the wrong people are going to try to fuck with him and know that he doesn't want to get in trouble. So they may push him a little further. Even.
But isn't he also suing the FBI for making him the person he is?
He is. And that's, that case, he's suing, basically saying he was an informant at 14 years old, that they, it was against FBI policy, the age was too low or whatever. But how that all came about is that the FBI, Rick's father was snitching for the FBI. And so the FBI would come, and they were working on the Johnny Curry case. And they'd start asking stuff like, hey, what do you know about Johnny Curry? And he'd be like, not that much. Hey, Rick, come on over here. And Rick would start saying all the stuff. So they started paying Rick. His dad knew about it, but a lot of times they were just paying the dad. And the dad would give, some money to Rick. But Rick's now saying that he was enticed into it, and they turned him into a dope dealer and all that
For
stuff.
those of us
I think the case is going to be
who are not deeply steeped in Detroit criminal history. Who was relationship interrupt us? Who was Johnny Curry?
Now, I'm sorry. Johnny Curry was like one of the biggest dope dealers on the East Side. And his brother Leo ran a big crew. They were significant players, and the FBI had been working to put Johnny away. And when Johnny actually went away to Minnesota, I used to talk to him on the phone all the time. He'd call collect, and he got a subscription. He asked for a subscription to the Detroit News at the prison in Minnesota, and the paper said, "Yeah, give him a subscription." But he's out now, and I think Johnny wants to. I think he's in the marijuana business now, but
it's a natural step.
Sure is.
Yeah. Huh. That's I'm not surprised he's such a draw, Rick, but he even did that like on stage interview with Charlie the Duff at some
right.
One of those
people paid.
Andiamo banquet halls up in Warren. It sounded like a dream.
I think he got paid $10,000 to do that, and I think it was a full house of people, feds and retired feds, and just people who, there's 2 movies out. There's one on Netflix. They may be both on Netflix. One is a documentary called White Boy, which is really good, well done. The other one was with Matthew McConaughey.
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 Yeah.
And that is not very good. And part of it was that I was told that he plays Rick's dad in the movie, and the movie's not great anyways, but he plays Rick's dad, and Rick's dad wasn't the greatest guy. But Matthew did not want to play somebody who was not a great guy, so they sort of revised the script to fit him. And
I only saw the trailer. I one of these days I'll look it up, maybe when my husband's off fishing. But I thought Matthew McConaughey nailed the Detroit accent.
Yeah.
We're going for custard.
Well, I sat next to Rick's son, who was at the time 30 years old. They did a screening in Novi. I sat next to him, and he's actually a super nice guy. He went to University of Michigan. He's a white collar worker for Chrysler. And the thing was, right afterwards, the producers and everybody were fielding questions, and Rick's sister was there, Dawn, who I know Dawn, and she's a nice person, but Dawn started attacking. She raised her hand and said, "How come nobody called me to get, to be a consultant here? How come I'm not getting any money from this?" And Rick's son just looked at me and shook his head.
Allan, in a month from now, this will die off. Charges will be dropped, and we'll see this little excerpt somewhere in another Netflix or Broadway play on White Boy Rick.
Or part of the documentary. Look, I'm sure him showing up. I'm sure he caught, and the documentary people were probably in court and having him come out, and all that stuff. So it's going to be part of the drama of the documentary.
Is he living in Michigan now, or is he down in Florida?
He's got a place down in Florida. I'm not sure what his relationship is with Michigan at this point.
Okay.
He's been down there for probably 3-4 months. He's got living in a really nice area of Miami.
Everybody ends up in Florida, I mean, it's Carl Hiaasen was right. He told a story about watching OJ's acquittal and turning to his wife at the time and saying, "He's coming to Florida." Yeah. Sure enough, that's exactly where he did.
If you're Jewish, you have to wait till you're 65.
Yeah, right. Well, apparently Florida allows you to keep your house if you have a
they're
judgment
really
against you.
to debtors.
Yeah, exactly. It's very good to debtors.
And they have no income tax.
Yeah, income tax. Yeah, so you go down there and then you buy a big house, you sink all your money in there, and then you're kind of.
I think locally, the guy that owned WADL, Adele, moved down to Florida too after he got, I thought, a judgment years ago.
Oh, interesting. That guy's a real. Yeah, I saw he owes millions in unpaid estate taxes. But there you go. All right. We're coming toward the end of the show when we do traditionally our last segment. Lengel, are you ready?
All right, I'm going to play that commercial one more time.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. There are payment plans available to help save your property. Visit our website at treasurer.waynecounty.com or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com for further information. We're here to help.
They're here to help.
And now here we are.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
Love that.
There's always so many schmucks in a week of news that we have so many to choose from. Although I usually end up with like at least 2 on my calendar, but I only have 1 this time. So I hope nobody takes my schmuck. Let's go clockwise around from. Oh, okay, David, you want to start? Go ahead.
Yes. This has been bothering me. Gas attendant who locked customers in with a gunman.
Oh.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
He locked the customer. Where was this? Was this here?
Yes. This week there was a shooting where a gentleman who walked into a gas station. Apparently there was an argument between him and the person behind the glass. And he told the attendant that if he didn't get what he wanted, he was going to shoot everybody that was in the gas station.
Oh, I didn't.
What does the guy do? He automatically locks the patrons in the gas station, and then they all get dead except for one.
Wow. Over $3, I think, or $4, something absurd. I mean, if there's any justification, but just the craziness of it.
And on top of that, not only does he lock them in there, but then he unlocks the door after he's shot everybody and at least temporarily lets the killer go.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
I saw that. I agree with you, David, on that. I saw that. It's so outrageous. The guy's behind the glass, so he's not
Bulletproof
afraid.
glass. Yeah, right.
Yeah, he locks the door with the customers while this crazy man, just crazy.
And it's an unlicensed, unregulated gas station. I think,
Huh.
Yeah.
So lawfully to begin with.
Life behind the plexi in a Detroit gas station is a pretty grim career, but you still want people to have a little bit of human decency, and like. Yeah, exactly.
3x3. Yeah.
That glass sometimes emboldens the guys. Back in the late 80s, Sam Dickow, when he was one of the party store owners, he had a party store behind the Fox Theater, and he was involved in this FBI sting, and he turned over the party store to his brother, Joe, who was I sat behind the glass one day, sitting with Joe, and Joe was just messing with the customers and fuck you, you motherfucker, get the you guys like yeah. He's like fuck. And then it was just crazy. It just agitating the customers because he's behind the glass, and he said, "Hey, sometimes you just gotta say what the fuck."
I was pinging on fumes once and pulled in at a gas station, kind of the worst part of Mac Avenue, and it wouldn't take my debit card. And I don't know how much cash I had. Probably had $5. I never carry a lot of cash, but I went in and I said, "It won't take my debit card." And this Yemeni kid goes, "They be scamming." So, there's something about those guys and that Arabic accent and the street lingo. It's just always cracks me up. Anyway, all right. That was a very good one there, David. So who's next?
Top schmuck for me nationally is CNN. It's got to be CNN. Because I think what they did. And one sad story, you might see the end of Big Boy because now all their funds are being locked up. For those who
right. I read that story. I read Nolan Finley's story yesterday. It was very confusing. I just couldn't figure out what he was thinking when he allowed himself to get into bed with this clearly unsavory character, and now he finds all of his funds
all locked up in Lil's ham sandwich shop in Dearborn's closings.
Yeah. Oh, that's too bad, man. So, all right. Bill, how about you? Let's go around the horn.
Well, I'm going to follow up with that. I'm going to get the pronunciation of the guy's name wrong, but the president of CNN who authorized
Chris Licht,
I think Chris Licht,
Licht, something
Licht,
like that.
Licht. I can spell it, I can't pronounce it.
Yeah.
The decision to give Trump this much airtime, and I got to credit my son, who, when he found out that I was doing this show and that there was a schmuck of the week, said, "It's the president of CNN." And
our fan base speaks. I love it.
But he's right. I mean, he should never have been given this kind of airtime. The only way we're ever going to deal with this guy is to simply
starve him of oxygen.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
That's what he's doing to us, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, he consumes all the oxygen in the room, and the only way to do it is to stop it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, Joel.
My biggest schmuck of the week is going to be Trump. He's a constant schmuck, but this week, he again just to be reemerged in Trump denialism from CNN and the lies and the tone and this constant barrage of Trump, which we have to stop. I think he's the biggest schmuck of the week. The lack of, it's amazing this man exists. Lack of insight, shamelessness. He's such a remarkably anomalous person to me. I've never known anybody quite like this. But, I mean, I've known narcissistic people and sociopaths because that's what I dealt with. This guy's in a class of his own. And the ability to continue to ram forward, regardless of what's in his way, is terrifying. And that's how fascists come to power.
And
you just blow people over.
Tens of millions of your fellow Americans think he is the bee's knees. So
which is nuts. But again, Maggie Haberman, I saw her yesterday, and she said Trump just has one speed, and CNN knew the speed he was going to. All he's got is one.
Yeah.
And not to fully prepare for it is disturbing. But again, Trump is just an asshole. And to be reemerged in that again is disappointing to me because, I don't think he's going to win in 24, but God forbid he does.
God.
Shanda. When we started Schmuck of the Week, we always said you can't say Trump. This is what we had.
And now it's time for Deadline Detroit's nominees for Schmuck of the Week.
Craig used to always say
picture of Trump, by the way.
Craig used to always say it was the Donald G stands for genius Trump of the Week, Trump's Schmuck of the Week award. So there you go. So we'll give you can take an occasional pass on this and this week was a very good week.
Thank you. Yeah, this was a weird week. It was just weird to see it again and to feel all I'm feeling again was watching this guy is like just the anger and the dismay.
Visceral feelings.
I know.
But it's terrible to realize none of us have said it's impossible for him to get the nomination or to get elected.
Yeah,
right. He's the front runner in the nomination, and everybody has kind of agreed. It's not a clear road, but there is a road.
Definitely a road
for him. That's terrifying.
Never say never, and that's what I'm telling all of my daughter's young friends who are unenthused by Biden. Consider the alternative, because that's what you're going to get otherwise. All right, Lengel.
I was going to say, you saw Trump when they talked about the debt ceiling. He said, well, and they said, you said that when you were president, you shouldn't use that as a bargaining tool. And he goes, what's changed? And he goes, I'm not president anymore. And they panned to the audience and they were so amused and they thought, oh my God, he's so clever.
He's owning the libs.
He's clever. Exactly. We love him.
Right. Actually, Allan, can I jump in for just 1 second? I want to change my Schmuck of the Week. Right. I want to make my Schmuck of the Week the guy who sent me a text saying, are you watching CNN during the Trump?
That would be calling me a schmuck.
All right, Lengel, who's yours?
Mine is, a couple. Mark Rubio for talking about after the verdict in.
You can't turn him Irish though. He's still Cuban. Mark Rubio.
Rubio. Yeah, and so he said when he talked about the verdict in the rape case, he said that case is a joke, which I think is just so disgraceful that somebody, a U.S. senator, would just,
right.
Not that, we've had, and my other one real quick is Governor Chris Sununu from New Hampshire, who comes on and tries to be like this very moderate, I'm a reasonable guy, I'm not crazy like Trump. But he doesn't. He says, I voted for Trump in 2016. I voted for him in 2020, but he's a loser. He lost us, 2018, 2020, 22. He doesn't, he almost brags about his loyalty to the Republican Party regardless. And I think it's inexcusable when you know that Trump is evil and you're still voting for him.
So evil.
Yeah, I'll tell you how I heard that. The problem with Trump, this is Sununu. The problem with Trump is he didn't take over the government. Had he succeeded at becoming a dictator, I'd be back.
I'd totally be down there. I'd be rolling at his feet like the pussy that I am. So all right, okay, all right, and that leaves it to me. And I'm shocked nobody got to this, but maybe you all don't read the Detroit News. Daniel Hartman, who has the distinction of being the Michigan Republican Party's new lawyer. Hired by none other than Christina Caramo. Okay. And he said during a recent interview that it was crazy that Christians allowed non-Christian voices into the marketplace of ideas. Now, of course, this show's panel is, especially if you add on a week when Saeed is here, we generally have a very broad range of non-Christian perspectives here, but this is the kind of thing, and I feel sorry for the people who have never encountered a woman like Christina Caramo, who lives and breathes being a Christian and makes Christ is she's always thinking like, what would Jesus do, and usually answering the question the wrong way. But this is the kind of person that she thinks is perfectly fine for the party to have as a lawyer, as their legal representation. So, he'll go on and he doesn't even seem to think there's anything wrong was saying this. And so, please, all the Jewish Republicans in Michigan, come to your fucking senses and, turn your back on these folks. But
it won't happen because in St. Clair County, the Republican Party is saying you have to get permission from the Republican County Party before you vote in Lansing on any vote. Otherwise, you're kicked out of the party.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Wow.
All right. Well,
Actually,
there we go.
I'm going to convey this. I had not heard about Hartman's quote. I'm going to convey it to David Fink, who represents the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Because Fink will find it very humorous that maybe he shouldn't be allowed to speak in court being Jewish.
Exactly. The marketplace of ideas.
Law? I mean, did state constitutional law? Did she get that First Amendment thing? Did she kind of?
Guess not. All right. With that, we've gone over the hour. I always try to bring this show in on an hour, but we have some good conversations, some garrulous people today, and that is fine. So thanks to everyone here, David Rudolph, Ed Sarpolus, Bill Seikaly, Joel Sklar, and as always, I'm Nancy Derringer, and as always, the last word goes to Allan Lengel.
Drive home safely.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good day.